The Tales of a Red Clay Rambler is made possible in part by Starworks, host of the 2022 Woodfire NC International Conference. The conference will kick off May the 21st with two pre-conference events happening simultaneously in Asheville and Seagrove, where visiting artists will load and fire a variety of wood-firing kilns. The main conference runs from May the 26th to the 29th at Starworks in Star, North Carolina, and features artists from around the world discussing the future of wood-fired ceramics. For more information, please visit woodfirenc.com. Welcome to the Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast, featuring interviews with culture makers from around the world. This is Ben Carter. I'm going to be your host. If you'd like more information on the show, please visit our website, talesofaredclayrambler.com.
Hello, I am Lindsay Oesterritter, and I am guest hosting this episode of Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast. I'm here with my partner, Jason Vulcan, to talk about parenting and finding balance between work and life. We live in Manassas, Virginia. I work as a full-time studio potter. And Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about your job?
So I'm a retired military officer, and I currently work as a contractor here in the Northern Virginia area.
We have two kids, a 5-year-old who's River and our 3-year-old Micah. And I will say both of us are enjoying for the very first time that they're both in school. So this year has felt more balanced in terms for myself, like being able to get back in the studio and having kind of regular hours that are dedicated to my own job versus before. I feel like it was a little bit more around the kids' schedule and when Jason was on and off work. So we would tend to do, I would work in the evenings or it would fluctuate a little bit more. So I think I can say we are both really enjoying having them in school.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Lindsay. I mean, at least with our daughter, when she was born, I was still in the military and still traveling some for work. And, the kind of the initial period when we were new parents and trying to find some kind of new schedule and routine with her, trying to figure out who would stay up late with the kids or who would get up early with the kids. And at least initially I had, to be at work early. And so I would kind of take middle of the night to the morning time frame where you would often be up late with her when she was a baby. And I remember probably, she was probably a few months old and we had a nanny who assisted. That really made a difference in terms of having, some time to ourselves and personal time, but also being able to, to watch our daughter when she was real little.
Our nanny Annette, River was actually 6 months old. I will say one of the things in kind of getting ready for this talk that my memory of how it was and how it actually was is really different, because I remember taking time off and really wanting to have a good break after having the baby and starting work again. And I remember that 6-month period being like, okay, now it's time to get back to work. But when we were preparing to have this conversation and looking at, I think one of the things that stands out for me in having a kid is how my own identity, how I was really worried about what it would look like in a weird way. I think when I had our first River, I already had a career and I had kind of an identity in ceramics, and this idea of becoming a mother, I was really nervous about how I would be viewed, or how I don't know. I don't exactly know what I thought it would look like or how I thought it would shift, but I was worried about it. So when we shared the news that I was pregnant and looking at like what I could do or what I couldn't do, I think that I more than I looking back, I can see it more clearly that I fully tried to kind of incorporate River in my life rather than separating her. And that really helped me as an individual. It kind of helped me grow in a way that I don't know if I would have that separation. An example when we were talking a couple days ago is that the first time we flew with River, she was 2 months old, and that was for a show in Berkeley and a workshop with that, and it was a woodfire show.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to our parenting style a little bit. I mean, our approach has been that our kids go where we go and they do what we're doing. And some of that comes from, lessons that our good friends or close friends have passed on, people that we've seen and as successful as parents. I have a good friend, him and his wife and family. And I was just always amazed at how flexible their kids were in terms of adapting to new schedules, traveling and going places. And I kind of asked them, don't you have to set up, some kind of a routine that works around them? And their advice was, they just go where we go. They learn to be flexible as kids. Kids are adaptable. And if, that's what they learn is normal, kids can roll with it pretty well. And I think our kids are great examples that have kind of proven that works, not for everyone, but with us, River and Micah too have traveled from a young age, and, they're flexible and adaptable, and they kind of roll with it like we do. And I think that's going to set them up really well, as young children and young people.
Well, I think at the same time, it's helped us stay flexible in that way. Like when I think about some of those early experiences where River was 2 months old and 3 months old and 4 months old, and the things that I was accomplishing and doing with her, at some point, it just became part of me in this way that, yeah. I mean, I have a lot of good stories from breastfeeding and random locations and conversations I've had with people, in this sense of, some of the things looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. At one point, Objective Play, we were at Watershed doing this week-long or 2-week-long kind of orientation with one another. And I brought River with me, who that time, I think she was 4 months old. And there was a moment where I was half like running a meeting or, and she was breastfeeding. I'm holding her breastfeeding, like running a meeting with Objective Play. And it wasn't until after that I realized like how far I had come at that moment of being able to be both a professional and a mother at the same time, in a way. I'm asking you, like, did having children in any way change or affect your job or how you approach things or your identity at work?
I don't think it really changed my identity at work when we had River. I went from being a military person with a wife but no kids to having a wife and a new baby at home. And I was, the schedules and travel requirements were flexible enough that I was still able to do everything that I was normally doing. I would say that, once we had our daughter is when I started traveling with you to support you for some of your work travel, some of those conferences and workshops that you were talking about, going to Berkeley, going to Penland and Watershed. those were some of the first times when I'd had the opportunity to travel with you and see you in, outside of a studio setting, but in a teaching and workshop setting, because I was there to take care of River while you were teaching. And like, such a better understanding of the rest of your professional life, that I was now able to see because I was there, and helping to support and enable that. Where I feel like before our daughter was born, the support it seemed more like a one-way street, where you had moved cities to either visit me where I was stationed, or to when we moved and relocated here in Virginia. And I wasn't able to reciprocate in the same way. But suddenly when we had a daughter, a very young daughter who needed care, to be able to change my time off schedule to be there and travel with you and care for her, that was a huge change, a huge positive change for me. To the question of a changing identity, the bigger change in identity came for me around the time that our son was born, because I retired from the military at that time. And that was certainly a huge identity change, where I went from a military person to a retired person, and I became the primary caregiver for the two kids. And we continued to travel for family travel, but also for your professional commitments. And a huge benefit that I've seen from having kids and parenting, and like the teamwork it requires to do that, but being able to travel with you and support you in that has been a huge positive for me.
Yeah, I'll say even setting up the home studio and having the kiln at home and having the studio downstairs in the basement has really in a lot of ways, being able to incorporate the kids and incorporate our neighbors and incorporate our friends and family in a way that I had never done before. Also, before it was at the university and you'd build a community there, but it was never so much part of my personal life. And it's been a really interesting, wonderful thing to be able to share those moments and details with the kids in a different way. And I'll say too, when we had Micah, I thought that was awesome. Like, I remember with River and you only having 2 weeks off work, and what a struggle that was in terms of for yourself, like missing out on these really young moments. And then with Micah, for you to take that year off and have it be where we could travel as a family. I mean, we did that amazing 6-week road trip where we visited friends and family, and we had all that time out in Helena. Was really amazing. But on the other side, because I felt always like the primary caregiver for River, it helped me too to be able for you to take on that role for that period of time was amazing too, because in a lot of ways it helped. It at least made me feel like he gets it now. Like the daily tasks that are so time consuming, but then you wake up the next day and you do the exact same thing. And like, you don't feel that productive, it's like the payoff is way more long-term with the relationships you're building. But for me, it was so nice in a strange way, even having you experience those struggles. Cause I remember those conversations with Micah and River, and 2 kids is more than one also. Right. So, but for that first year, having all that time, was nice in a different kind of way for me too. Like not being the primary, like the one that was always kind of like changing schedules.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that the time that I took off from work to become primary caregiver for the two kids was a very enriching and like rewarding time. Like you had said, like when River was little, I was still traveling for work. And so I remember, I was out of the country on a work trip, and you sent me a video, and it was of River's first steps, first learning to walk. And I was out of the country and wasn't able to be there, but I was so grateful to be able to have that moment recorded in video and then go back and watch it. And whereas with Micah, I was at home with him every day, him and River every day when he was kind of going through those same milestones. And it was just such a blessing to be able to have that bonding time with both kids, kind of for that time period. It made me really appreciate, and like you said, I certainly, after doing that, I certainly got the struggle of how do you accomplish these normal household tasks when you're also wrangling a toddler and a baby who needs almost constant kind of attention. You just have to you have to manage expectations on how many other things you can get done during the day, and watch the kids. And that was an important lesson learned too about time management in supporting you. With wood-fired ceramics, it's so time and labor intensive, right? So the cycle of making work, preparing work, and then firing it over the course of a couple days, it takes so much, right? Time and effort, and we've been lucky to be able to bring in help, to help with the firing, and bring in family. Like your mom has been really great about being able to come and help with the kids. But, when it was just River, I could, help support the firing process, cooking dinner, splitting wood, whatever, and still watch the toddler. But as soon as we had two kids, I couldn't effectively do both. I tried a couple of times and was, dinner was late, or it got burned, or the kids were, in the playpen and not getting enough attention, and really had to learn to step back, and my focus was the kids, unless we had, a helper there, your mom, or, the sitter that, we brought in to watch the kids. And so changing my expectations of how I could support and where my focus needed to be. That was an important lesson learned for time management and watching the kids.
I would say the same thing. Like the thing that I have taken away with having the kids is the preciousness of this time with them, but also to work at organizing in a way that I can be focused on something and not thinking about another thing. So, if I know the kids are going to be home, like for example, I really work to keep my weekends now because they're not in school. This is the time with them. So I'm not going to try to accomplish these things that maybe beforehand I would try to accomplish at the same time, because then I'm fighting with myself where I'm upset that they're not able to work on the puzzle longer because I need more time to do this, document that I'm working on that needs maybe some editing that takes focus, or I'm trying to, put handles on mugs and the drying process and the timing, and this kid's not, able to do something on their own. You bring them into the studio. It's never as nice. Like I'm always amazed when I see these potters on Instagram that are like, look at my studio helper. And they're like sitting next to them and slowly working on some piece. Whereas I bring my kids into the studio and they're like, let's destroy. Like, how much can we put into this bucket and make this big thing of mud and then paint the walls, It's not like where I'm actually able to get stuff done. So if River comes in the studio, it's River studio time. That's my job, is to I am her teacher. I'm not there to do anything, So that sort of thing where I try to separate out or really create a balance of this is time with kids. This is for the kids. And I still do that. I think it's, if anything, it's more now because with the kids out of the house, we see them less. And so I really want to have those conversations with them and have that time with them that's more focused.
Yeah, I would say their going to school has certainly been an important transition. Like when River started preschool, we kind of had a glimpse of that, but we still had Micah at home, and so someone still had to be with him and watching him. And he went to daycare for a short time, a couple of months. River in preschool, Micah in daycare for a few months, and then the pandemic started, and so we went back to 24/7 kids at home, and finding our own way of time management and work-life balance. But I would say, like, in the fall, so just, 6 months or so ago, having River in school and Micah in preschool and both of them out of the house during the week has been a big change. And I mentioned pandemic, and so kind of have to talk about what a difference that has made, in that I was able to shift from office work to work from home. And that's been a huge change in terms of how we get to spend time together, me spending time with the kids, but also me spending time with you, in that I'm able to work from home as well. I'm grateful for the flexibility that the job has had to be able to do that. But that's been a huge plus, to be there, to help get kids ready in the morning and get them off on the school bus or off to preschool, picking kids up in the afternoon. And being able to work from home, I'm able to balance that with you, as opposed to how it was when I was driving into the office, and I wasn't able to carry as much of that load with you.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Amoco Brent. For the past 100 years, Amoco Brent has been creating ceramic supplies for our community, ranging from underglazes to electric kilns, and they have no plans of slowing down. With over 3,000 products, Amoco Brent's top priority is making sure that all of their customer needs are met. From the professional to the student and everyone in between, their high-quality materials enable you to make your best work. To learn more, check them out at amoco.com or on Instagram and Facebook at Amoco Brent. You can also show them how you use Amoco by sharing your work online with the hashtag HowIAmoco. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfeld Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online resource for research and inspiration, featuring photos of thousands of objects made by over 800 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great resource for students and teachers. To find out more, visit rosenfeldcollection.com.
I would say we do a good job in terms of working together as a team with the kids. And I feel like we do a pretty good job communicating. I know sometimes that because you're working from home and then there's kids, that it's hard. You don't have that downtime that you want as much to work on woodworking or some of the things in the garage. But that seems like less of a struggle maybe now, or I don't know. Do you still find that as a struggle, or?
I think, again, it's about expectation management, right? Where maybe I used to expect that I could, spend the day at the office and come home and find time to do my own kind of time in the workshop, either in the evening or on the weekends. And that's just hard, to do. And so the project you're working on, or the, what you do is going to be a little bit here and there. It's an hour in the evening here, or it's, an hour or two on the weekend when, while the kids are otherwise occupied, in the amount of time that you expect to be able to dedicate to a focused, time in the workshop and making. So I think my expectations have changed, I would say.
I would say too, for myself, that I now just have to plan more time into things. So even when I'm in my making cycle, that making cycle has to be longer because I just can't do as much in a day. And I also am just now for the first time, like I used to be able to work until 2 a.m, and now I refuse to work until 2 a.m. It's like now after dinner, I don't want to come down into the studio and start a new batch of something. I want to be able to have that time with just you, where the kids are in bed and we have time that's our time together so that doesn't disappear either.
Yeah. And that's one thing I would say that the last year or so has really driven home for me is the importance of making time for yourself and protecting that time, both for you, but also for me. And that's one thing I didn't do really well, was set aside some time for my own mental health, personal health. So last spring, my brother and I started, as we started spending, one evening a week for an hour or so just in the workshop. We were tying flies for fly fishing. We just picked something, but something where we could have a video call, him and I, our dude time to bond and catch up and chat. And our dad joined us for one or two sessions. My sister joined us for a session, but that was something that he and I were both craving with all of the time at home, that easily becomes work time or kid time with the kids, where it's, we really had to find a new way to make time for ourselves. And so they're just realizing the importance of that and protecting that time, setting it aside and protecting that time.
I would agree. I think, when I think about making in the studio also, I don't know if it's because things are taking longer, but I find that now I have so many more ideas that are kind of slow process ideas, that are hand building ideas, or things that, some of it's probably COVID related and all this time at home and just a shift in perspective in general, or a response to some of the politics. But it's hard not to have everything kind of feel like it's in some ways transitioning some of my ideas or what I'm wanting to work on. Yeah, the other thing I'll say about having two kids is how different they are no matter what. It's kind of like, I don't know what I thought my kids would be like. I don't know if I gave them, but it's been amazing just how they are their own person, and how a lot of what I'm doing in some respects is responding to who they are. So my approach to River is different to my approach to Micah because of what they need.
And just they have very different ways of kind of interacting with the world, right? River kind of high energy, going through life at full speed, whereas Micah is sometimes a little more contemplative. The one thought about, kids in the workspace. So like both kids, are interested in what you do in the studio, are interested in what I'm doing out in the workshop. And like both kids have been, wanting to come out and learn how to use tools in the workshop with me and work on a project and, help, not necessarily helping daddy. Like you said, when they come in the shop, it's their studio time and you're there as the shop teacher or, the studio assistant. Yeah. But that's been interesting just seeing like difference in like time span, right? Time and attention, like Micah will want to come out and drill holes for hours,
Yeah. So I think we're getting close to the hour. And I will say, if anybody has any questions or wants to, talk about anything or books or toys or something that's indispensable for parenting or anything specific, feel free to email me. I can, I'll share the emails with Jason, but you can email me through my website, loceramics.com. And I'm also on Instagram, Lindsay O. And Jason, what is your Instagram?
JD Vulcan.
JD Vulcan. Is there any one last super tip that you would like to part on?
Just the importance of communication. I mean, so many things come back to communication, right? Nobody's a mind reader. So when you need more time, or you just need some time aside to process things, or, for us, it's been a code word to the other to know when to tag in on parenting, when patience is wearing thin because the kids are, needing more attention maybe than normal. So just, parenting is a team sport. I'm lucky to have a great partner in that team effort. Yeah, the importance of communication.
That's what I was going to say too, is importance of communication and respect. I would say respecting what the other person is saying and what they need.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about, what's the good stuff, best tips, happiest baby on the block. If you're looking for how to take care of your newborn, read the book, The Happiest Baby on the Block by Harvey Karp, MD. The 5 S's for how to calm an upset baby. Absolute lifesaver. Next time I'll interview you.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
We respectfully acknowledge and honor all Indigenous communities whose lands we reside on in the United States, and recognize that we are uninvited guests on the occupied, unceded, and ancestral lands of over 500 nations indigenous to North America. By acknowledging and reflecting upon the contemporary lived experiences and histories of the Indigenous peoples here and globally, we may begin to take essential steps towards creating a more equitable world. Learn more through the hashtag Honor Native Land initiative of the U.S. Department of Arts and Culture, and consider contributing to Indigenous-led organizations doing important work to further health and wellness, sovereignty, and self-determination of the First People of the lands you reside. This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
Cut it because we only have 5 minutes left, like on the timer. And it does feel a little bit like rambling, doesn't it?
Well, we're Red Clay Ramblers.
That's true.